You just witnessed the next face of Penn State wrestling. His name is PJ Duke. And the crazy thing is, he's not alone.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is right. You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling, and thank you so much for checking out another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State Wrestling. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us a part of your regular routine. If you're not an everydayer, become one. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast for your daily source of Penn State sports news and analysis. As we're going to talk about Final X, I mean, there were plenty of Penn State Nittany Lion Wrestling Club members that were competing this weekend, but we got to talk about the future faces now that everybody knows. Everybody knows about PJ Duke. I mean, how could you not? But it's the fact that he's not alone. We're going to talk about Marcus Blaze in the upcoming segment as well. Let's begin with PJ Duke, because Duke did something that most people weren't expecting, including myself. Did I think this was going to go to a full best of three? Yeah, I had my assumptions that Duke was going to challenge Diakomihalis as much as he could. But to go from a 10-0 Tech, losing 10-0 in the first round, that's a humbling experience right there. But that did not deter PJ Duke. This is what makes him why you can't just say, hey, it's best to redshirt him this upcoming season. I don't know how you can keep him out of the lineup. If you're Cale Sanderson, if you're Penn State, there's going to be plenty of conversations to discuss and justify all of that, because it's not like there's an immediate spot like there is for Marcus Blaze at 133 or 141. But let me continue with Duke and this Final X best of three, because he loses 10-0 in 3.5 minutes to Diakomihalis. Honestly, not a bad first match. Whoa, 10-0. That's a bad first match. But he seemed to be the aggressor. He was making good shot attempts. He was taking great shot attempts. But Diakomihalis, great counters, reattacks, finishing his moves ultimately. But I definitely think that Duke was able to learn and pick up on a couple of different nuances that helped him in these second and third bouts. So we go to match two. He's down 10-8. It looks like Diakomihalis is going to sweep him, and he's going to it's going to be status quo here. And then Duke pulls off a 9-point sequence and wins 17-10. He scores 17 points against a former 4-time NCAA champ in round 2 at Final X to decide who's going to be the face at 70 kilos for the senior world team. And then you go into match 3. You go into match 3 and you pin him. You want to talk about a roller coaster. That was the emotional up and down for PJ Duke and Diakomihalis in this sequence, to go from being teched, no issues for Diakomihalis in the first bout. The second bout, hey, if you're Diakomihalis, you look like you're about to win here and sweep against an incoming freshman for Penn State. And then he pulls off a 9-point sequence, wins 17-10, and now it's winner take all. And now it's not, okay, I have a little, you could see Diakomihalis's confidence, losing ground a little bit, and Duke starting to really gain momentum. And you just seemed like he figured out Diakomihalis in that moment, and he did. He pinned him. You want to talk about capping off Final X and this whole, the U.S. Open, the World Team Trials and everything, for Duke to pin a former 4-time NCAA champion, a former world medalist. Diakomihalis was the clear favorite. Duke, every time I watch PJ Duke wrestle, I say to myself, he belongs here at the senior level. It's different because Luke Lilledahl and Josh Barr, against Trent Hidlay and against Spencer Lee, respectively, you could argue inexperience. Every single time I watch PJ Duke on these freestyle circuits, that doesn't even cross my mind. He looks every part of it at the senior level. Think about this resume he's put together over the past month, few weeks. He adds Diakomihalis, who he had to defeat, may I mind you, twice. He had to defeat him twice in order to be the senior world team rep. He also had to defeat reigning NCAA champion Ridge Levitt, reigning NCAA champion Antrell Taylor, former four-time NCAA All-American Bryce Andonian to get to this point. And he hasn't even wrestled a single collegiate match. This guy right here is the face, the next face of Penn State wrestling. And he doesn't have a clear spot in the lineup. 157, 165, 174, presumably, are all taken up. Tyler Kasak at 157. That's going to be the main discussion point here. I alluded to it. We've talked about it over these past few shows when, hey, PJ Dukes really performed very well here. He looks insanely talented. He's easily the number one prospect in this class alongside of Masanosuke Ono, in theory, even though he's not officially ranked, and Marcus Blaze. But now I don't know that it's a true 50-50 debate anymore. That, well, or Tyler Kasak, assume that he's going to be there and expect PJ Duke to make it interesting, make it a conversation. Does Tyler Kasak defeat Diakomihalis? I get it. It's freestyle to folk style. I completely understand. I really do. If you want to make that argument, I understand. But folk style, freestyle, I don't know that applies here. Yanni Diakomihalis is in his prime at the senior level. Is Tyler Kasak defeating him twice in a best of three? Probably not. They do have the common head-to-head matchups with Antrell Taylor. Tyler Kasak beat Antrell Taylor twice. He pinned him in the Big Ten tournament. Duke won by, I think it was just a few points. Maybe I'm mistaken there. But he win. It was a narrow margin of victory. He still did win. He still won. And that should be expected for Kasak to win those kinds of matchups. But it gets really complicated at 157. I don't think Mitchell Mesenbrink's given up 165. I know that for a fact. I can confidently say that. Same thing with Levi Haines. Hey, Levi Haines just made his senior world team. Again, talk about some other Final X takeaways there at the end of the show. Duke, though, is going to push his way into the lineup. There's a case for redshirting him. I just think it gets a little more complicated if you do that. Because then you still have Kasak at 57. You still have Messenbrink at 65. You have Levi Haines would move on at 74. Okay, so you could do a little bit of lineup shuffling there. I suppose it's a great problem to have because it's going to create that competition. Duke looks like he's a pending four-time NCAA champion. He is only going to get better at Penn State. And he's more than hit the ground running. We'll see what ultimately the plan is for Duke and company. And he's not alone. Because in this process, Marcus Blaze was in action at Final X. And he took down Brock Hardy, NCAA runner-up, NCAA finalist this past season, losing to Jesse Mendez. And Blaze didn't win by couple of points. No, it was similar to Duke in the fashion it was a convincing victory over Brock Hardy for that true third place matchup at 65 kilos. So PJ Duke, Marcus Blaze are forming this dynamic duo. We're going to talk about Blaze specifically alongside Duke coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. You're going to download the Gametime app because buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Gametime makes it fast and easy to get seats on anything, even for the biggest events. Sports, comedy, theater, you name it. NBA playoff games, NBA finals are going on right now, and Gametime can help you get seats. Get this. Prices on the app actually drop as the game gets closer to tip-off. And then you have killer last-minute deals. You get panoramic seat views, No surprise fees. Game Time is a total game changer. You can get Penn State tickets. That's right. You can get tickets to Penn State football games ahead of time now. Schedule is out. Some of the kickoff times are released, and you can go to Game Time and get those tickets early. And if you've never been to Beaver Stadium, you'll get those panoramic seat views, which I truly do believe are a difference maker. I've used Game Time myself. And if you haven't been to a venue or a stadium before, you can see your point of view ahead of time. So you're not second guessing. You know what it's going to be like at the venue. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account. Redeem code LOCKED. COLLEGE, Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And we still got to get to some other rapid fire takeaways as Josh Barr came up short. Mitchell Messenbrink came up short. But Levi Haines makes his first senior world team. Did Father Time finally catch up to Kyle Dake? Plenty of discussion points here as Final X told us a lot about the current state of wrestling. Oh, there's Marcus Blaze too. So let's return to what's coming up here in the 25-26 season for Penn State wrestling. Is that PJ Duke is not alone. And he's going to be, I think, the primary face here. But Marcus Blaze has a case too. Blaze, now he did lose to Seth Gross. And that's why he wasn't in the similar situation. But he was close. He could have easily been the true senior world rep at 65 kilos. He was, but hey, close only counts in horseshoes. But I don't think he should be forgotten just because, oh, he took third place. Third place. That was against Brock Hardy. Hardy's back for another season at Nebraska. He still has a year of eligibility. So be it. Competitive wrestler at 141. So he should be one of the NCAA title favorites going into this season alongside Jesse Mendez to defend that title. If it's a rematch of that one at 141, wouldn't shock me. We'll see if Blaze is at 141. Blaze has a little more flexibility because at 133, it's not going to be easy to bump Braeden Davis. Braeden Davis is still there. You have Aaron Nagao. I think there's a reason that Jeff Byers, and the last time we had a conversation, did name drop Aaron Nagao because there really is this competition that's going to unfold at 33 and 41 between those four wrestlers here. Masanosuke Ono, who's a world medalist, world champion, and somebody that defeated Spencer Lee at that Flow Wrestling event. So where Luke Lilledahl fell at Final X, Ono defeated Spencer Lee in a high stakes matchup, not similar to Final X in the Olympics, but you get what I mean. People are trying to win. It's not just a friendly exhibition. That's a competition right there. You have Ono, you have Blaze, you have Davis, you have Nagao. Most people are going to assume, how can you keep Blaze and Ono out of this lineup next season? Those guys are just too good. I understand. It is freestyle. Folk style is a different beast. It is. It truly is. I do think there is going to be a bit of a learning curve for Ono. However, these guys have still proven enough that with how well they've done in the freestyle circuits and the names that they've taken down in the past, plus in conjunction, so specifically for Blaze and Duke, I mean, you could argue that they're just as good at folk style with the way that they've wrestled coming out of high school. And they're both four-time state champs. Now, Ono, you can't have the same argument. Ono has not been training or wrestling in folk style until recently. And now he's going to be doing that. It's hard to assume. It is difficult to assume that Braeden Davis and Aaron Nagao would be able to go in at 133 and 141. And if there is a true open competition, I don't think that Penn State's going to say, hey, let's have the intention of having PJ Duke, Marcus Blaze, and Masanosuke Ono redshirt and try to plan long-term. I think you're delaying the inevitable. I think you're kicking the can down the road by just deferring, because then what happens when everybody uses another year of eligibility? Have these competitions now. Kasak could beat Duke. He could. I'm not guaranteeing anything. But with what we've seen recently, you have more confidence in Duke than you would Kasak. Not everybody, but more people are starting to say Team Duke. For Blaze, I mean, he's defeated the likes of Dayton Fix in the past. He just had a convincing victory recently over Brock Hardy. How can you not put him in the lineup? Blaze and Duke were 1A and 1B recruits, 1 and 2 respectively. You could make an argument for either. I got to say it's Duke now. If we want to definitively have that answer that it's PJ Duke, because he did in fact make the senior world team as the 70 kilo rep. Marcus Blaze may have taken third, but was one defeat. If he happens to beat Seth Gross, he's right back in that position at 65 kilos. And Blaze can go in at either spot. If I had to make a prediction, I think Blaze is going to wrestle at 133 to start, and Masanosuke Ono is going to wrestle at 141, and that has to do with the weight cut since he hasn't gone through folk style and everything. And if that's if Penn State can get the eligibility approved. Redshirt's on the table for Ono. They could still redshirt him, but it wouldn't be because he's not ready. It's to guarantee him maximum eligibility, because right now the NCAA says he only has 1 season. So if they don't extend his eligibility, Penn State's going to do everything in its power to try to extend that eligibility. And if that means using his red shirt now, okay, so that's what's going to happen there if they happen to use his red shirt. Oh, it's Ono's not ready. No. That's not what it would have to do with. It's about maximizing what he's able to do for his collegiate career. Blaze is a national title contender right out of the gate at 133, at 141 even. Lucas Bird returns as the reigning champ. So is Jesse Mendez. And Brock Hardy is an NCAA finalist. But Blaze would be in the top 3 instantaneously at either of those weight classes. Same with Masanosuke Ono. They could flip-flop. He could be at 33. He could be at 41. So Penn State has that luxury there. If they do happen to go the red shirt route, Davis is coming off of a top 5 finish. Aaron Nagao is a former All-American when he is truly healthy. It is an embarrassment of riches for Penn State at these spots. But I got to say, if Penn State's going to hold an open competition, I do think that Blaze is going to win that spot. Ono would win that spot. And Duke at this point in time would win that spot at 57. And then where do you go from there with all of that? Davis and Kasak do have a red shirt for what it is worth. We'll see how it all unfolds. Right? It seems like it's far away, but it's really not too far away. In just a few months, these battles are going to be had. Now, specifically for Final X, other Penn State wrestlers did not have the same weekend. Josh Barr was swept. Luke Lilledahl was swept. Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. Kyle Dake was swept. Hey, Levi Haines actually was the one that swept his opponent. So we'll pick up with those wrestlers next here and talk about what it means in the near future for their wrestling careers. That's coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. So plenty of wrestlers to summarize in this final segment between Levi Haines. Mitchell Messenbrink did not defeat David Carr and actually was swept by him. Should have mentioned him in the transition. Josh Barr didn't shake hands with Trent Hidlay. What is that all about? All right, let's discuss it here. Levi Haines has really settled into freestyle. And that freestyle is maybe better for him at folk style. What I take away from this is that how quickly Levi Haines is able to adapt, learn. I mean, he's the 79 kilo rep. I do find it intriguing. I want to ask around, maybe get some other input on this. Why did Kyle Dake go from 74 all the way up to 86? That is such a leap. That is a really big weight class change. Is it because Levi Haines was ready at 79 kilos? I'm just asking questions. Because why did Kyle Dake go to 86 and not just one weight class at 79. It would have made logically more sense. He ends up losing out. He looks severely undersized against Zahid Valencia, but we'll talk about Dake in just a moment, a little more. Levi, though, is the favorite at 174 again in folk style. He just needed to adjust to the weight, and that's it takes time. So I'm going to talk about Kyle Dake soon. Haines finished third after bumping up 2 weight classes. He's now settled in at relative, 174, 79 kilos. And he's the senior world team rep. And he's going to be the favorite at 174. And my choice to win an NCAA title to cap off his career. Second place finish, first place finish, third place finish should end up with another NCAA title. But his combination of strength, speed, intelligence, it's really that strength component where and then defensively too, where you combine it truly is the strength component where when you watch back that match with Dean Hamady specifically, it looks like a tale of two matches where he struggled to get to his attacks. Hamady was able to sprawl away, make it difficult for Haines. And Haines is, I'm just going to push him around out of the circle and then ultimately wear him down. So that's where I think freestyle really does help Levi Haines, is that it's just that combination of strength and speed that's really able to, he teched Evan Wick 10-0 in the first match, and then won, I think it was 6-1 in round 2. So he was able to get that sweep. Let's pivot to Mitchell Messenbrink, because Messenbrink was my pick to beat David Carr. I'm not surprised that David Carr won. I am surprised that he did sweep him. I am surprised that Messenbrink did not take this to a best of 3. Had it gone to a best of 3, Messenbrink would have won. My takeaway from that is Messenbrink, not purely, primarily won on conditioning at the U.S. Open. They go through the full tournament. They go back and forth. Messenbrink has more stamina. That is clear as day. And now, when both of these wrestlers are fully healthy, they got a full gas tank, they're not going through match after match after match, and it's really just survival of the fittest at that point. I mean, that's a phrase that you could honestly use for this too. But now that all things are equal, you're not going through different types of matchups, different types of opponents that might bring out your weaknesses, might exhaust you in another way. It is just David Carr and Mitchell Messenbrink. There's no other gray area in between to judge this. And David Carr proved that. When David Carr wasn't as gassed, when he had more in the tank, he was able to stick to his defensive game plan. I mean, Messenbrink scoring 3 and 4 points respectively. This was close. This is a rivalry right here. I can definitively say that. This is the rivalry that keeps on giving. Messenbrink only had 3 points and then 4, losing by criteria in that second match. So there wasn't much that separated them, but that's the difference between wins and losses at this level. Messenbrink doesn't need to go back to the drawing board or anything like that. A takedown here and there. I think what really didn't help Messenbrink was in the second match giving up that takedown. He was never able to really get away from David Carr when Carr was chasing after him. And Messenbrink gave up those takedowns. His counters weren't that good or weren't good enough to stop Carr. But I got to go back to the fact that if Mitchell Messenbrink, who pushes the pace, who can put up double digits at a moment's notice, the fact that Carr was able to hold him to 3 and 4 points respectively tells me a lot. And kudos to Carr for making the world team as the starting rep. Josh Barr, we still got to talk about Josh Barr, Luke Lilledahl, Kyle Dake. We'll go a little rapid fire. We're going to have more conversations, don't worry. Josh Barr, the handshake controversy. He avoided Trent Hidlay and is a poor sport about it. He did shake his hand. There is video evidence of that. I don't know where that spread like wildfire on the internet, that, Josh Barr didn't shake his hand in the post when the referee raised Trent Hidlay's arm. But did they shake hands, and did he congratulate Trent after their match was over? Yes, it is there. And it was distant, right? Josh Barr even admitted that he was upset. I don't like that Josh Barr had to specifically make a statement, though, in regards to avoiding the handshake, because he technically didn't. Did he not go out there to get his arm raised? Yes. So in the heat of the moment, I don't look at Josh Barr any less before. Statement doesn't do anything either. He did shake his hand. He did congratulate Trent Hidlay, just not in a true formal sense. And I didn't think a social media statement was personally necessary. I don't think it's necessary. But in the spotlight like that, you're going to get that, especially when there is that pressure from the internet. For Josh Barr, see, that's why I don't want to just use the inexperienced cop out. Trent Hidlay's the better wrestler, more aggressive. Hidlay has been at this for so long, and he and his brother, I've interviewed both of them. I've interviewed Trent and Hayden Hidlay. These guys are down to earth. The conversation that Hidlay is hated by Penn State fans, maybe Penn State fans don't like him because he just defeated somebody they like in Josh Barr, but there shouldn't be any hate, because both Hayden and Trent are very respectable, down-to-earth human beings. They put every ounce of their livelihood into the sport of wrestling. And the Hidlay brothers have been denied by Penn State from so many accolades. NCAA championships, Aaron Brooks, Jason Nolf, you name it, for both their respective career paths. And then senior level events. The Hidlays have been denied by Penn State. So for them to get that out of the way, to finally overcome that mountaintop in some regard, is huge. So I don't look at the celebration. That is an emotional celebration that Trent deserved to have after all of those shortcomings. Josh Barr looked hesitant, wouldn't attack. His shot, simply put, aggression and rookie mistakes. Why is he not dropping to a knee? Why is he standing back up and allowing Trent to take advantage of that and get an easy takedown? You made it easy for Trent. I thought Barr was there athletically, and in terms of strength, in terms of smarts and awareness, that's all that Trent needed. Trent wanted it more, simply put. Luke Lilledahl, he closed the gap on Spencer Lee. He absolutely did. He closed the gap on Spencer Lee. Still, there's quite a gap. It's 5-6 points. But Lilledahl will continue to chip away at this. There were people that assumed that this was going to be another 10-0 tech, gut wrench, leg lace, whatever. It was going to be quick and easy, done and over with. No, because I think in a year's time, this is going to be maybe 1, 2, 3 points. And maybe it goes to a hypothetical best of 3 if they meet again for Final X. It's Spencer Lee and Luke Lilledahl. I don't see anybody else changing that at 57 kilos for the next couple of years. And then what happens with the Olympics? Because that's Spencer Lee's true goal, is to get back to the Olympics. I imagine by 2028, when the Olympic trials roll around, that Luke Lilledahl will be right there, if not surpassed Spencer Lee at that point in time. That's a long ways away, though. Luke Lilledahl should be the favorite at 125 next season for NCAAs. Should be the favorite. He'd be my choice to win. And then Kyle Dake. So to wrap this up, and I know I didn't get to everybody. Kyle Snyder won at 97 kilos. Changed his stance a little bit, but looked like Kyle Snyder, and nothing affected his game overall with the stuff that he's dealt with off of the mat. Kyle Dake, though, father time and bulking up to a weight class that isn't his really did him in here. Zahid Valencia is in his prime. Training with Cowboy RTC has really unlocked another level of potential for him. That was it. Kyle Dake just couldn't keep up. So what happens here with Haines seemingly to be the guy at 79 kilos and Zahid Valencia at 86? Carter Starachi maybe could factor in if he's going to stay with freestyle wrestling for the foreseeable future. I don't know how Kyle Dake gets back into being the rep at the world lineup. And then at 74, if he wants to make that cut all the way back down, he's not going to do that. Mitchell Messenbrink, David Carr, Levi Haines at 79. So you either got to go through Levi Haines or an improved Levi Haines next year and for the years to come, And same thing with Zahid Valencia / Carter Starachi. And as I sit here and say that about Dake, maybe he'll get back to the drawing board and truly get in, because I gave Haines that grace that he needed time at his weight class to truly settle in and look at this newfound potential. But Haines is entering his prime. Valencia is in his prime. Starachi would, in theory, be in his prime as well, whereas Kyle Dake is leaving it. So Father Time is undefeated, but only because, Kyle Dake has done this for so long. So I don't want to dismiss it like that. And Kyle Dake did finish as a runner-up. He wasn't upset by any means. Valencia was going to most likely win, even though I had my confidence that Dake would do this. Hindsight's 2020. But Dake he isn't far off, and he wasn't upset. But as time continues to march on, I wonder what this situation is going to look like in a year, 2 years' time. How much can he keep up this pace at a weight class that isn't his? Lengthy discussion here between Duke, Blaze, Final X takeaways. And it's all awesome to be able to discuss all of this in the offseason. That is going to do it for another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Thank you so much for joining me here on the show. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. If you're new to the channel, if you're not an everydayer, become one. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts for daily conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams: football, wrestling, recruiting, basketball, hockey too. You name it, it is all right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.